Hi, Alita. How you doing? Okay, so good job. Thank you so much for getting this resubmitted. And yeah, now I can see what you're talking about, where you're going. So excellent. Thank you. So we've got your kind of your opening notes, which would be your dialogue, and that's good. And I would recommend from here practice this on somebody, whether it be somebody in your family or a friend or a spouse or coworker, and have them play the employer, excuse me, and you're the person getting interviewed. I mean, they don't have to do anything other than listen to your opening thing and listen to you introduce your work. And it really makes a big difference. It's great practice to do it in front of somebody, and it really does work. So try that. So let's get to your work now. Okay, we got your opening page, good size, great page size. Love the page size. Love it. Okay, so then we start, and you've done something very smart, and that is you've kept the continuation of this typeface over here in the introduction to your pages. So that's really smart. That draws a real nice continuation. I see that you've got your descriptions at the top of the page. That's great. And if you prefer them there, that's fine. I like to see them on the bottom only because I think as turning the page, I want the viewer to see my work first, then see the description. So my work always comes first. Do you see what I'm saying? So we don't have to stop and kind of pause before we jump in a new page. We kind of have to stop and pause, and then we get to look at the work. I hope that makes sense. And either way, it creates a cadence and a nice timing that will work for the viewer to be able to easily identify what's going on each page. Okay, so these look great. I like seeing these to scale. I'm going to show you a couple of things. Now, there's two things that keep coming to my mind when I'm going through your portfolio, and the two words are mock-ups and use of the grid. And I'm going to address both of those. Sorry, just writing myself some notes. Okay, so I'm going to address both of those. But the work itself, let's jump through the pages and look at the work itself. Now, I've talked about a little bit about this page size in the introduction. That's great. What you've done here is fabulous. Like I said, it creates a nice timing, and it really creates a good cadence, and it's very minimal eye movement. So the viewer goes from the reading to your work, and then they get to spend some time in your work. They read the description, then get to spend some time in your work. And that's a good formula. Either way, like I said, if you like it on the top, that's great. I prefer to see it on the bottom. Whatever your personal preference is, neither is correct or incorrect, as it were. So it's basically a personal preference. These pieces look good. Now, remember I said grid. I want to talk about the grid. All right, these pieces, for the most part, I think you have a good idea of what the grid is. And I can see that, but as you can see, I'm going to take my cursor right here. I'm going to place it right here at your left margin. I'm going to move along, and you can see that you're pretty consistent on your left margin. And we can do the same thing over here on the right margin. Let's jump over here and jump back up, and we can see you're pretty consistent on your right margin. So you do have a good basic understanding of the grid. So we're going to take that a step further. Your sample sheet looks good. It says this kind of says, hi, this is who I am, and this is what you're going to be seeing of me in the next few minutes. So that's pretty cool. And again, we're going to fit that to a grid. This piece, I think it was very smart of you to start with this piece because this is a strong piece. My only recommendation here is to add your bleed lines to the die line, because you already have your fold lines and your cut lines. So if you add your bleed lines, it'll show just a little further understanding of the production file. And that's a good shot right there. I wonder if you have any more from that same series that we might be able to see. Collateral poster looks good. Again, we're going to try to do a couple more things with that. This postcard piece, I think it's a pretty bland piece. If you have any other postcards, there's very, very little information in here, and I'm not real sure if it's portfolio worthy. I'm wondering if you have any other postcards that you can share. This news ad looks great. I think it looks really good. Really good. it's a good ad. Now I think we're going to take this, maybe deconstruct it a little bit, and work it out so that we can create a whole grid on one full page out of that piece. Tarzan. And this piece, I think, is just begging for you to show your typographic skills. I mean, it looks like it's just dying for type. It really is. And all those places I just highlighted. So, and then again, that's a package that would definitely need to be further, I'm not real sure if that's done or not, but it definitely looks like it could be finished. This piece is your brochure. Can you show us spreads on this? In other words, show us printer spreads. In other words, so this would be the front, then inside front, and then so this would be a bifold too. And I'm wondering the size on that. But again, we'll show that in a grid, and I'll get to that in 1 second. Then this piece, your process book looks like it is a process book that was done in a previous class and just pasted in here. And that's not what we're interested in here. We're interested in the work itself. So what I'm going to recommend is we pull that work out, those sketches, and let's show those. That's what we're interested in. Let's get those sketches in there big. We got 6 of them. You got 2 pages of sketches. That's great. And trust me, you want hiring professionals and portfolio reviewers love to see sketches, love to see process. So show it. Don't hide it here in this little tiny space. It's about 1/18 or 1/20th of the page, or not even that. I mean, it's tiny little area where you can't see any of your work. So let's show your work. Same thing here. Pull these out of those background pages. And even though we just saw them before, it is, this is tough. You might want to show those back to back, because right now it looks like you're trying to show 2 different pieces for the same. So in your sequencing, you might go collateral, or actually it would make more sense to go process book, then end with collateral, so you can see the process. We started here, we went through this phase, and then we ended here. And then that's your new collateral DVD project. So it's actually a new project, but it follows a logical sequence. Corporate identity, this looks good. Again, we got to get nice big shots of those. That's the work. That's what I'm interested in, and that's what people want to see, is your work, definitely. So we need to see this a little bigger. We'll talk about that in a second when I talk about grids. Okay, and then this piece here, this logo right here is different. You're not showing the logo, the actual logo, on the business card, the other side of the business card. And in fact, you've got 4 different versions of your logo. This one, okay, then the flower alone, then the flower with the type above, then the type above with the flower on the lower right. So as far as corporate design collateral and designing a business identity goes, I think that you're a little bit scattered there. I would use the main logo in all the areas where you're going to show a logo. That'll reinforce your branding. Web, I didn't look at that. I will, let's see what, excellent. Oh, it works. Awesome. Good job. Excellent. Awesome. Very good. Where were we? We were right here. Okay. This piece, I would definitely, can you crop this or put a clipping mask on it? Or is it supposed to have these pieces that are kind of hanging off the side? I'm not real sure if it is or not. It's an elective, I believe, isn't it? Or no, it's digital graphic. Okay. So whatever your choice is, I'm not real sure if that needs to have a clipping mask on it. This piece looks great. And I think the work is fantastic. I really do. I think your work is fantastic. Okay, so I talked about mock-ups and grids, right? Okay, so mock-ups. Let me show you this. All right, this would be a mock-up. All right, here's your work. All right, and then let me show you how another student handled a mock-up of that. Okay, letterhead in the background, resume, business card, live mock-ups, and envelopes. Okay, can you see how that's a really nice presentation? And then let's go, and a lot of the work was mocked up. For example, this piece, you could actually show this in a magazine, okay? An image of Photoshop, an image of somebody opening a mag or holding a magazine ad open to this, or an image of a magazine on a table with this as the ad, a mock-up. Same thing with all of these. So I think you should really consider mocking all of these up. And let me show you some examples from that same student who also did a bunch of different mock-ups. Okay, instead of just the digital versions. So there's a sample sheet. Okay, so there's see that instead of just showing the digital file for the postcard, showing the front and the back, and then showing that in reverse, and then finishing the grid by showing just a little bit of that postcard, just gridded out. Cropped out. And then look at this, is interesting. So you see how that's mocked up. It's actually put in a frame and put on a wall. All right. And can you see how that poster design might be a very interesting way maybe to present that? Okay, and then and so on and so forth. So you really have a lot of right there. That was I was talking about. There's an image of a magazine just sitting, and it's got the ad right in the magazine. Then it's got two little cropped out areas from the ad showing close-ups of the photography and the typography. So that's a really nice page there. And then we have the same kind of mock-ups over and over and over. It's really a nice way to present things. There's that magazine again. All right, let me show you this. So that's what I'm talking about, mock-ups. Remember? And then I said the other thing I said when I was saying I was taking notes. The other thing I mentioned is grid. Let's talk about grid. Okay, so grid would be, okay, well, remember I said you had a pretty good idea of grid with the right and the left margin. But it's what happens between the right and left margin. All right, now what I'm going to recommend is that you design one solid grid, define one area of the page that you're going to use, and that area is consistent from page to page to page. You can change it up once you get into what I'm talking about, and I'll show you an example in a second. But let's take a look at how this goes. And let me again, I'll just use this example. So this student starts with this 2x2. And it's a grid, but it's not 2x2 as it looks centered like this. It's 4x2, and we'll see that in a second. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay, see how that would fit? 1, 2, 3. Excuse me. Here's a better example. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2 grid. All right. And then everything else there is kind of a variation of that. So there's that 4x2. That would be if they were sectioned off like that. 2, 3, 4. But you can see here that this designer used this whole quadrant for one area, and then these two semi areas to define as a second and a third area. Same thing here. Now note they all follow this 4x4 grid structure, okay? So they're all fitting in the same area. Then the designer does something over here, a little bit different. Okay, here's half of that grid, and this is a beautiful example of how you can set your pages up, mocking them up and using the grid. Okay, but I wanted to show you then over here, right here, where is it? Right here. Now the designer says, okay, I'm going to change this up to a 3x2 grid instead of a 4x2. There's 1, 2, 3. Actually, yeah, that's 1/3. So that would be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So you got 3x2 grid. Then this is just fitting. It's kind of following the grid, but it's kind of hard not to. Then back to this 3, 1, 2, 3x2. Then back to this 4x2. Okay, so can you see how this adhering to the grid is going to make your pages much more uniform? So here you could have your poster here, and then over here you could have a cropped in of the typography there. Then over here you could have cropped in of the dancers, and then over here you could have a shot of that poster on the wall. All right, so stuff like that. All right, so anyways, that's where I am. I am so sorry I'm over 14 minutes. I did not mean to do that. But anyways, that's what I'm talking about. If you have any questions, please, I want to cut this short. I just looked at the clock and I was like, wow. Anyway, okay, I'll cut this short. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, thank you very much, Alita.